Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the massive shape floating in the darkness of space. The alien ship was huge, easily 3 times the size of his own vessel. It had been drifting here in the outer edges of the Sol system for who knows how long. "Sir, we're picking up no energy signatures," reported his tactical officer. "The ship appears completely dead." Kethvar nodded. His people, the Zilani, had been part of the Galactic Coalition for over 300 years. They knew about humans, of course. Everyone did. The strange bipedal species from the 3rd planet of this very system had made contact with the galaxy 2 centuries ago. They had seemed promising at first, with decent technology and interesting ideas. Then came the Great Silence. 200 years ago, all communication from human space simply stopped. No more trade ships, no more diplomatic messages, no more anything. The Coalition had sent investigation teams, but they found nothing. Empty space stations, quiet planets. Most assumed the humans had destroyed themselves in some terrible war, as young species often did. "Bring us closer," Kethvar ordered. "I want a full scan of that vessel." As they approached, the true size of the human ship became clear. It was not just big, it was enormous. The hull stretched for kilometers, marked with symbols and writing in the strange human language. Along its sides, Kethvar could see what looked like launch bays for smaller ships, hundreds of them. "Admiral," called his science officer, "I'm reading the ship's markings. It says
U.S. Indomitable.
And there are human letters that spell Supercarrier." Kethvar had never heard that word before, but he could guess what it meant. This was a ship designed to carry many smaller fighting ships. The humans had built something massive for war, and then it had been lost out here in the dark. "Any signs of life?" he asked. "None, sir. The ship is cold and dark. It looks like it's been drifting for decades, maybe longer." The Admiral made his decision. "Prepare a boarding party. We'll take a close look at this human technology. The Coalition Science Division will want to study everything we can find." 3 hours later, Kethvar led 20 soldiers and scientists through the airlock they had cut into the human ship's hull. Their suits provided light in the dark corridors, and their boots made metallic sounds on the strange human flooring. The inside of the ship was unlike anything Kethvar had ever seen. The corridors were wide enough for large groups to move through. The walls were covered with panels and displays, all dark now. Everything was built on a scale that suggested the humans expected to have thousands of people living on this ship. "Sir, look at this," called Dr. Vexani, the team's technology specialist. She was examining a wall panel with her scanner. "These circuits are incredibly complex, more advanced than anything we use." They moved deeper into the ship, finding room after room of strange human equipment. There were areas that looked like they were meant for growing food. Workshops filled with tools and machines. Living quarters with beds sized for the tall human body shape. "How many humans lived on this ship?" asked Lieutenant Mortek. "Based on the living areas, I'd guess at least 10,000, replied Dr. Vexani. "Maybe more. This thing is like a flying city." Kethvar was starting to feel uneasy. The Coalition had always thought of humans as a minor species. Interesting, but not particularly advanced or dangerous. Yet this ship suggested something very different. The technology was clearly beyond what most Coalition races could build. And the size? Why would humans build something so massive? They reached what appeared to be the ship's bridge. It was a huge room with screens covering the walls and control stations everywhere. In the center was a chair clearly meant for the ship's captain. Everything was dark and silent. "Can we power anything up?" Kethvar asked. "I can try to connect to their systems," Dr. Vexani said. She pulled out a Coalition standard interface device and began looking for a way to connect it to the human computers. As soon as she touched the interface to a human control panel, something unexpected happened. Lights began flickering on throughout the bridge. The screen started showing symbols and text, and from somewhere in the ship came a deep humming sound like massive engines starting up. "What did you do?" Kethvar demanded. "I don't know. I just connected our interface and—" Dr. Vexani stepped back from the control panel as more lights came on. The humming sound grew louder. Through the bridge's main screen, they could see lights coming on all along the ship's hull. The dead vessel was waking up. "Sir, we're picking up energy readings throughout the ship," reported their communications officer over the radio. "Something big is powering up." Then a voice spoke. It came from speakers all around the bridge, speaking in clear Coalition standard language with a slight human accent. Unknown vessels, you have activated emergency protocols on United Earth ship Indomitable. This ship is the property of the United Earth Space Force. You are currently trespassing on human military equipment. Kethvar looked around in shock. The ship's computer was talking to them. But more than that, it knew they were aliens and it spoke their language perfectly. "This is Admiral Kethvar of the Galactic Coalition," he said to the air. "We found this ship drifting and assumed it was abandoned." "Admiral Kethvar, your assumption was incorrect. This vessel has been in standby mode, awaiting the return of Coalition forces to human space. You have triggered automatic revival protocols. Please stand by." The humming sound grew even louder. Through the bridge windows, they could see sections of the ship's hull opening up. Things were moving inside those openings. The ship was not just powering up, it was preparing for something. "Admiral," came a panicked voice over the radio from his own ship. "The human vessel is powering weapon systems." "And, sir, we're detecting movement from other parts of the Sol system. There are ships out there. Lots of them. They're heading this way." Kethvar felt his blood run cold. The great silence hadn't meant the humans were gone. It meant they had been waiting. And now, after 2 centuries of quiet, they were waking up. The voice spoke again from the speakers. "Admiral, for your safety, please remain on this bridge. Captain Chen will be with you shortly to discuss the current situation. Welcome back to human space." As if in response to these words, they heard new sounds from deeper in the ship. Footsteps, voices, the sound of people moving around and talking to each other. The humans weren't just back. They had never left. Deep inside the UES Indomitable, Captain Sarah Chen opened her eyes for the first time in 57 years. The cryogenic pod around her hissed as it opened, releasing the special gases that had kept her body frozen in time. She took a deep breath of ship's air and immediately felt more alert. "Welcome back, Captain," said Athena, the ship's artificial intelligence. The voice came from speakers near her head. "We have visitors." Sarah sat up slowly, letting her body remember how to move. Around her, hundreds of other cryogenic pods were opening. Her crew was waking up just like she was. They had all volunteered for this mission, to sleep in the cold dark until they were needed again. "Status report, Athena," Sarah said as she climbed out of the pod. Her legs felt weak, but she knew that would pass quickly. "Coalition forces have entered human space. A Zalani Admiral and his team are currently on our bridge. I have activated full revival protocols as per standing orders." Sarah nodded and reached for her uniform. It had been waiting for her, perfectly preserved for over 50 years. As she dressed, she could hear her crew members waking up all around her. Soon the ship would be fully alive again. "How many Coalition ships?" she asked. "The boarding party came from one heavy cruiser. However, my sensors detect a larger fleet moving toward Sol system, approximately 40 vessels of various classes." Sarah smiled grimly. 40 ships seemed like a lot to the Coalition, but they had no idea what they were really facing. The humans had not been sleeping for 2 centuries. They had been preparing. She walked to the nearest communication panel and pressed her hand against it. The panel read her palm print and immediately connected her to the ship's command network. "This is Captain Chen to all department heads," she announced. "Full awakening is in progress. All personnel to stations. We have Coalition visitors and more are coming. Operation Lighthouse is now active." As she walked through the corridors toward the bridge, Sarah could see her ship coming alive. Crew members were moving to their posts, talking quietly to each other. The lights were getting brighter. The air systems were running at full power. After decades of silence, the Indomitable was returning to life. She passed the massive hangar bays where her fighters were stored. Through the windows, she could see robotic systems beginning to prepare the small ships for launch. Each fighter was piloted by an advanced AI that could think and react faster than any biological pilot. The Coalition had never seen anything like them. "Athena, are our guests comfortable?" Sarah asked as she walked. "They appear nervous, Captain. The Zalani Admiral keeps asking questions about human capabilities. I have been giving him standard responses. As per first contact protocols. Good, let's not show all our cards at once." Sarah reached the bridge to find 24 Coalition beings standing in the center of the command area. They looked small and confused among the human-sized control stations. Their equipment appeared primitive compared to the technology around them. The Admiral was easy to identify. He stood taller than the others and wore more decorations on his uniform. His species had blue-gray skin and large eyes. Sarah had read about the Zelani in the intelligence reports. "Admiral Kethvar," she said as she entered. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen, commanding officer of this vessel. I apologize for the delay in greeting you. We don't get many visitors out here." The Admiral stared at her. "Captain, we thought this ship was abandoned. We had no idea there were humans still alive aboard." "Not just alive, Admiral. We've been waiting." Sarah walked to her command chair and sat down. Around her, human crew members were taking their positions at the various control stations. "Athena, ship status." "All systems coming online, Captain." "Crew revival at 95%. Weapons systems fully operational. Fighter wings ready for launch." Admiral Kethvar looked around nervously. "Captain Chen, perhaps there has been some misunderstanding. The Coalition believed human space was empty. We've had no contact with Earth for 200 years. Sarah turned to look at him. "There's been no misunderstanding, Admiral. Earth chose to remain quiet while we observed the galaxy's development. We've been watching everything that happened out there." "Watching?" The Admiral's voice went higher. "How?" "We sent ships to this system many times. We found nothing," Sarah smiled. "You found what we wanted you to find. Empty space stations. Quiet planets. No signs of human activity. We're very good at staying hidden when we want to." One of the Coalition scientists stepped forward. "Captain, the technology on this ship is far beyond what we remember humans having. How is this possible?" "Dr. Vexani, isn't it?" Sarah said, reading the scientist's name from her command display. 200 years is a long time. We didn't spend it sleeping. We spent it building, learning, preparing for the day when the galaxy would expand into our territory." Athena's voice filled the bridge. "Captain, I'm receiving communications from Earth Command. They are aware of the situation and have activated the outer defense networks." Admiral Kethvar looked confused. "Defense networks?" Sarah stood and walked to the main display screen. With a few touches, she brought up a view of the Sol system. What the screen showed made several Coalition members gasp. The system was not empty. It was full of activity. Orbital stations around every planet, massive structures in the asteroid belt, ships moving between the planets, and most shocking of all, huge installations that had not been there when the Coalition last visited. "This is Sol system as it exists today," Sarah explained. "We've been quite busy while you thought we were gone. But our scouts," Admiral Kethvar stammered, "saw exactly what we wanted them to see. Stealth technology, Admiral. We've gotten very good at it." Sarah returned to her command chair. "Athena, please show our guests to the observation deck. I think they would enjoy seeing our fighter demonstration." "Of course, Captain." As the Coalition group was led away, Sarah opened a private channel to Earth Command. "This is Indomitable," she said quietly. "The Coalition has arrived in force. Recommend we proceed with full disclosure protocols." The response came immediately. "Approved, Captain." "It's time they learned what humanity has become." "Show them everything," Sarah smiled. After 2 centuries of hiding and preparing, humanity was finally ready to take its place in the galaxy. And they were going to do it as equals, not as the weak species the Coalition remembered. The Indomitable had been humanity's early warning system, left behind to watch for exactly this moment. Now the real fleet would show the galaxy what humans could do when they had time to prepare. Admiral Kethvar and his people were about to learn that underestimating humanity had been their first and biggest mistake. Admiral Kethvar stood on the observation deck of the human supercarrier, watching something that made his hands shake. Through the massive windows, he could see human fighter ships launching from the Indomitable's bays. They moved unlike anything he had ever seen before. The fighters didn't fly in straight lines like Coalition ships. They twisted and turned through space like living creatures, moving in ways that should have been impossible. Each one was sleek and black with no visible cockpit windows. "Captain Chen," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Those fighters. Where are the pilots?" Sarah Chen stood beside him, completely calm. "There are no pilots, Admiral. Those are AI-controlled units. Each one can think and react faster than any biological being." Dr. Vexani pressed her face against the window. "The movement patterns. They're breaking several laws of physics. How are they changing direction so quickly without crushing the pilot?" "No pilot to crush," Captain Chen replied. "And the physics work fine when you understand quantum thrust systems and inertial dampening. We've had 2 centuries to figure these things out." Admiral Kethvar watched as the fighters formed up in complex patterns, moving like a school of fish in 3 dimensions. There were hundreds of them now, all moving perfectly together without any visible communication. "Athena," Captain Chen said to the air, "please show our guests the tactical demonstration." The ship's AI responded immediately. "Demonstration beginning, Captain." Outside the window, the space around them suddenly changed. What had appeared empty now showed dozens of targets, old asteroids and space debris that Athena had moved into position. The targets were spread across thousands of kilometers of space. "Begin attack run," Captain Chen ordered. The human fighters moved as one. They spread out across the target field and began firing weapons that Kethvar had never seen before. Beams of pure energy that seemed to bend around obstacles. Projectiles that changed course in mid-flight to hit targets behind cover. And strangest of all, some kind of weapon that made targets simply disappear. "What was that last one?" asked Lieutenant Mortek, his voice full of fear. "Quantum disruptors," Captain Chen explained casually. "They break down the bonds between atoms. Very effective against armor and shields." In less than 5 minutes, every target in the field had been destroyed. The fighters reformed their perfect formations and returned to the carrier. Not one of them had been damaged or even slowed down. "How many fighters does this ship carry?" Admiral Kethvar asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. 1,200 combat units, Captain Chen replied, plus support craft, repair drones, and scout ships. The Indomitable is designed to be completely self-sufficient for extended operations. Admiral Kethvar felt sick. His own flagship carried 24 fighters, and that was considered a strong force. This single human ship had 50 times more firepower, and each individual fighter was more advanced than anything the Coalition could build. "Captain," came Athena's voice over the speakers, "I'm receiving a priority communication from Coalition Fleet Admiral Toxran. He is demanding to speak with you immediately." "Put him through," Captain Chen said. The main display screen lit up, showing the face of a Craxi admiral. His species looked like large insects, and right now he appeared very angry. "Human vessel," Admiral Toxran's voice buzzed with rage. "You will surrender immediately. You are outnumbered 40 to 1. Captain Chen smiled politely. "Admiral Toxran, I'm Captain Sarah Chen. I understand you have concerns about our presence in this system." "This system belongs to the Coalition now. Humanity abandoned it 2 centuries ago?" "I'm afraid you're mistaken, Admiral. Humanity never abandoned Sol System. We simply chose to remain quiet while we observed your expansion patterns." "Impossible. We've sent surveys here dozens of times, and each time you saw exactly what we wanted you to see." "Stealth technology has come a long way, Admiral." The Coalition Admiral's mandibles clicked angrily. "I don't care about your tricks. Surrender now or my fleet will destroy you." Captain Chen's expression didn't change. "Admiral, before you make any decisions you might regret, perhaps you should ask Admiral Kethvar about what he's seen aboard my ship." The screen split to show both admirals. Kethvar looked at his colleague with haunted eyes. "Toxran," he said quietly, "don't engage them. This ship, it's beyond anything we've ever encountered. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Nonsense. How advanced can one old human ship be?" "It's not old." Kethvar's voice rose. "It's been waiting here, watching us. And Toxran, they have 1,200 fighter craft, each one more advanced than our best ships." There was silence on the communication channel. Admiral Toxran's insect eyes seemed to grow larger. 1,200? He whispered. "Athena," Captain Chen said calmly. "Please show Admiral Toxran our current tactical display." The screen changed to show a view of local space from the Indomitable's sensors. The Coalition fleet was clearly visible, 40 ships arranged in battle formation around the human supercarrier. But the display showed something else that made Admiral Toxran step backward. The human ship was surrounded by a cloud of small contacts. Hundreds and hundreds of them, all moving in complex patterns around the Coalition fleet. "What are those?" Toxran demanded. "My fighters, Admiral," Captain Chen replied. "They launched while you were talking. Right now, each of your ships has approximately 30 human fighters targeting it. At this range, your fleet would be destroyed in under 3 minutes, but we didn't see them launch." "Stealth technology," Captain Chen said again. "We've gotten very good at it." Admiral Kethvar was looking at the tactical display with growing horror. "Captain Chen, are you threatening the Coalition fleet?" "Not at all, Admiral. I'm simply demonstrating human capabilities. Your fleet is perfectly safe as long as it doesn't take hostile action." Captain Chen walked closer to the communication screen. "Admirals, I think it's time for some honest conversation. The Coalition has been expanding into what you thought was empty space. But this space was never empty. It belongs to humanity, and we've been watching everything you've done. What do you want? Admiral Toxeron asked, his anger replaced by fear. What we want is recognition that humanity is not a dead civilization. We are very much alive, and we are not interested in being absorbed into your coalition as a minor member species. Captain Chen paused, letting her words sink in. This ship, the Indomitable, is not our most advanced vessel. It's not even our newest. It's simply the ship we left behind to watch for your arrival. If this isn't your best ship, Admiral Kethvar asked slowly, what is? Captain Chen smiled. That, Admiral, is something you'll learn when we reach Earth. Athena set course for Sol system. It's time our guests met the real human fleet. As the massive supercarrier began to move, both coalition admirals realized they weren't just dealing with one advanced human ship. They were about to face an entire civilization that had spent 2 centuries preparing for this exact moment. The balance of power in the galaxy was about to change forever. As the UES Indomitable approached the inner Sol system, Admiral Kethvar pressed his face against the observation window and felt his world collapse around him. What he saw was impossible yet undeniably real. Earth blazed with light, not just the natural blue and green of a living world, but the brilliant white and gold of massive orbital installations. Rings of metal and crystal surrounded the planet like jewelry, each ring larger than most space stations. Ships moved between the rings in steady streams, more traffic than Kethvar had ever seen around any coalition world. Dear gods, whispered Dr. Vexani beside him. How many people live here now? Captain Chen stood behind them, calm as always. Current population of the Sol system is approximately 40 billion humans, plus another 10 billion artificial intelligences with full citizenship status. 40 billion? Admiral Kethvar turned to stare at her. That's more people than live in the entire Zilani Empire. Earth has been quite fertile, Captain Chen replied. When you have advanced medicine and unlimited resources from asteroid mining, populations grow quickly. Through the window they could see Luna approaching. The moon that Kethvar remembered as a gray, lifeless rock was now covered with cities. Massive domes stretched across its surface, glowing with internal light. And above the moon's surface floated structures so large they cast shadows on the cities below. What are those things? Asked Lieutenant Mortek, pointing at the floating structures. Orbital shipyards, Captain Chen explained. Each one can build vessels up to Supercarrier class. Luna has 12 of them currently operational. Admiral Kethvar counted the structures floating above the moon. 12 shipyards, each one larger than the biggest space dock in Coalition space. And if each could build ships like the Indomitable, how many ships like yours does humanity possess? He asked, though he dreaded the answer. Athena, current fleet strength? Captain Chen asked. The AI's voice filled the observation deck. Active duty fleet consists of 47 supercarriers, 231 battleships, 412 cruisers, and approximately 1,500 smaller vessels. Additionally, we have reserve fleets in deep storage and rapid construction capability for emergency expansion. Admiral Kethvar sat down heavily in the nearest chair. 47 supercarriers, each one carrying over 1,000 advanced fighters. The entire coalition fleet consisted of maybe 200 major warships total, and most of them were decades old. Why? He asked weakly. Why build so much? Captain Chen turned to look at him, and for the first time her expression showed something other than calm professionalism. There was sadness in her eyes and something that might have been pity. Because we learned from history, Admiral, young species always make the same mistake. They expand rapidly, taking whatever they want, until they meet someone stronger who stops them. She gestured toward the window where Mars was coming into view. The red planet was red no longer. It gleamed with the silver and green of vast atmospheric processors and city domes. Humanity decided we would not be the ones who got stopped. We would be the ones doing the stopping if it became necessary. Mars grew larger as they approached. Kethvar could see that the entire planet had been transformed. Oceans of liquid water reflected sunlight between continents covered with geometric patterns of cities and farmland. Orbital elevators stretched from the surface to space stations that rivaled Earth's rings in size. The atmospheric conversion took 80 years, Captain Chen said conversationally. Now Mars has breathable air and supports a population of 12 billion. Most of our heavy industry is located there now. Heavy industry? Dr. Vexani asked. Ship construction mostly, and the fabrication plants for our more advanced weapon systems. As they passed Mars, the view changed to show the asteroid belt. What had once been a scattered field of rocks was now an organized industrial zone. Massive mining stations moved slowly between the asteroids, each one surrounded by clouds of smaller ships. The asteroids themselves had been hollowed out and converted into factories and habitats. We've processed about 60% of the belt so far, Captain Chen noted. The raw materials have been quite useful for our construction projects. Admiral Kethvar was beyond shock now. He simply stared as they passed installation after installation, each one representing industrial capacity that dwarfed entire coalition worlds. How had humanity done all this in just 2 centuries? The gas giants were particularly useful, Captain Chen continued as Jupiter came into view. The massive planet was surrounded by a network of stations and platforms that extended deep into its atmosphere. Unlimited fuel for fusion reactors, and the gravity wells make excellent locations for accelerator rings. Accelerator rings? Lieutenant Mortek asked. For launching ships at high fractions of light speed. Very useful for rapid deployment to other star systems. The implications hit Admiral Kethvar like a physical blow. You can travel faster than we can. Much faster. Our ships can reach any coalition world within weeks, while your fastest vessels would take months to reach Earth. They were approaching Earth itself now, and Kethvar could see the planet's orbital rings more clearly. Each ring was composed of thousands of connected structures, habitats, factories, docking bays, defense stations. The rings rotated slowly, providing artificial gravity for their inhabitants. 27 rings total, Captain Chen said, following his gaze. Each ring houses between 50 and 200 million people, depending on its function. The defense rings are smaller, obviously. Defense rings? Admiral Kethvar asked automatically. The ones equipped with planetary defense weapons, in case anyone tries to attack Earth directly. Captain Chen pressed a control on the wall, and the observation deck's main screen lit up with a tactical display of the local area. What it showed made Admiral Kethavar's blood freeze in his veins. The space around Earth was not just filled with orbital rings and civilian traffic. It was filled with warships, hundreds of them, arranged in defensive formations around the planet and its installations. Each ship was larger than the coalition vessels that had followed them here, and all of them were clearly military. The Sol Defense Fleet, Captain Chen explained. 150 major warships on permanent station, with rotating assignments from the main fleet. They're here to protect the most important human worlds. Athena, she continued, please show our guests the comparison display. The screen split to show 2 groups of ships. On one side were the 40 coalition vessels that had followed them from the outer system. On the other side was just a small portion of the human fleet around Earth. The human ships were larger, more numerous, and their weapon signatures showed energy outputs that the coalition ships couldn't match. Even worse, the display showed hundreds of the small fighter craft around each human ship. This is not even our full strength, Captain Chen said quietly. This is just what we keep in Sol system for local defense. Our main battle fleets are stationed at other locations. Admiral Kethavar stared at the display, finally understanding the true scope of what humanity had built. They hadn't just survived their 2 centuries of silence. They had used that time to become the most powerful single force in the galaxy. Captain Chen, he said slowly. What happens now? She turned to look at him, and her expression was serious but not unfriendly. Now, Admiral, we talk, because the Coalition has a choice to make. You can accept that humanity is back and treat with us as equals, or you can try to continue expanding into our space. She gestured toward the tactical display. I think you can see which option would be better for everyone involved. Admiral Kethavar nodded slowly. The Coalition had come to Sol system thinking they were dealing with a dead civilization, or at most a few surviving humans. Instead, they had found a superpower that had been quietly building strength, while the rest of the galaxy squabbled over trade routes. The age of easy expansion was over. Humanity had returned to the galactic stage, and they were not going to be pushed around. The conference room aboard the UES Indomitable was larger than most Coalition ship bridges. Admiral Kethvar sat at a table that could seat 50 people, facing Captain Chen and her senior officers. Behind the humans, a massive window showed the Earth spinning slowly below them, its orbital rings glittering in the sunlight. 3 days had passed since the Coalition fleet had arrived in Sol system. 3 days of tours, demonstrations, and very careful conversations. Now it was time for the real negotiations to begin. Admiral, Captain Chen began, have you had enough time to report your findings to the Coalition Council? Kethvar nodded grimly. I have sent complete reports on everything we've seen here. The Council is concerned. I imagine they are, said Commander Torres, Captain Chen's tactical officer. Finding out that humanity has become the strongest single power in the galaxy tends to worry people who thought we were extinct. The question now, Captain Chen continued, is what the Coalition intends to do about it. Admiral Kethvar had been dreading this conversation. The Coalition Council's response to his reports had been predictable: fear, anger, and demands for immediate action. Some council members wanted to declare war on humanity immediately, before the human fleets could spread beyond Sol system. Others wanted to try negotiation, hoping to find some way to contain the human threat. The Council has authorized me to negotiate, he said carefully. What are humanity's terms? Captain Chen leaned back in her chair. Our terms are quite simple, Admiral. Recognition of human sovereignty over the territory we currently control, establishment of normal diplomatic and trade relations, and a guarantee that Coalition forces will not attempt to expand into human space without permission. What territory do you currently control? Kethvar asked, though he suspected he wouldn't like the answer. Athena's voice filled the room, displaying current human territorial boundaries. The room's main screen lit up with a three-dimensional map of local space. The familiar Coalition worlds were shown in blue, while human-controlled space was marked in green. Admiral Kethvar stared at the display in shock. Humanity didn't just control Sol system. Green markers showed human presence in dozens of star systems, spreading out from Earth in all directions. Some were marked as colonies, others as mining operations or military bases. The human territory covered nearly a quarter of what the Coalition had thought was empty space. You've been colonizing for 2 centuries, Kethvar whispered. Of course, Captain Chen replied. Did you think we spent all that time just sitting on Earth? We've established permanent settlements in 47 star systems with resource extraction operations in another 30. But we never detected any of this. Commander Torres smiled. Stealth technology, Admiral. We've gotten very good at staying hidden when we want to. The map zoomed in to show some of the closer human systems. Each one showed the same pattern: developed worlds with orbital installations, mining operations in asteroid belts, and fleets of ships moving between planets. The Kepler 442 system has been our primary shipbuilding center for the past century, Captain Chen explained, pointing to one of the systems. Most of our supercarriers were built there. The Wolf 359 system is our main research facility. That's where we developed most of our advanced weapons. Admiral Kethvar felt sick. The Coalition had been expanding steadily for 3 centuries, taking system after system, always assuming they were moving into empty space. Instead, they had been slowly surrounding a civilization that was watching their every move and building fleets in secret. What about the other Coalition races? He asked. Some of our territory borders on what you're claiming as human space. We're prepared to discuss border adjustments, Captain Chen said reasonably. Any Coalition worlds that are currently inside our territorial boundaries will be allowed to remain independent, provided they agree to certain restrictions on military buildup and expansion. And if the Coalition refuses your terms, Captain Chen's expression became very serious, then the Coalition will learn what happens when you try to expand into occupied territory. The room's screen changed to show a different view of space. This time it displayed ship positions throughout human territory. What it showed made Admiral Kethvar's hands shake. There weren't just 47 human supercarriers. There were fleets, battle groups stationed in dozens of systems, each one larger than the entire Coalition fleet. The screen showed over 300 major warships with thousands of smaller vessels supporting them. This is our current active fleet strength, Captain Chen said calmly. We also have reserve fleets that can be activated if needed, and our shipyards can triple our construction rate in a matter of months. Commander Torres leaned forward. Admiral, the Coalition has about 200 major warships total, spread across dozens of star systems. We could defeat your entire combined fleet with less than half of our active forces. But why? Admiral Kethvar asked desperately. Why build so much military power? We never threatened you. Captain Chen stood and walked to the window looking down at Earth. Because we learned from history, Admiral. Every young civilization goes through the same pattern. Rapid expansion, taking whatever they want until they meet someone who stops them. She turned back to face him. We watched the coalition expand for 2 centuries. We saw how you absorbed the Vegan Republic, how you forced the Centauri Alliance to become a protectorate, how you divided up the Tau Ceti systems among your member races. Those were legitimate expansions, Kethavar protested. We offered those civilizations the chance to join the coalition. After surrounding them with your fleets and cutting off their trade routes, Commander Torres replied dryly. Very generous offers, I'm sure. Captain Chen returned to her seat. The pattern is always the same, Admiral. Expand until you meet resistance, then either absorb the resistance or destroy it. We decided we would be the resistance that could not be absorbed or destroyed. Admiral Kethvar stared at the tactical display showing human fleet positions. Humanity hadn't just prepared for war. They had prepared to win any war the coalition might bring to them. What about trade? He asked, grasping for something positive. Surely there are benefits to peaceful cooperation? Absolutely, Captain Chen agreed. Human technology could benefit coalition worlds greatly. Our medical advances have eliminated most diseases. Our manufacturing techniques could increase your industrial output by thousands of %. Our energy systems could provide unlimited clean power. She paused. Of course, all of that requires treating humanity as an equal partner, not a minor species to be absorbed into the coalition. The negotiations continued for hours, but Admiral Kethvar knew the outcome was inevitable. The coalition could not fight humanity and win. They could not ignore humanity and expand around them. The only option was to accept humanity as an equal power and hope for peaceful coexistence. 3 weeks later, Admiral Kethvar stood once again on the observation deck of the Indomitable as it prepared to leave Sol system. The negotiations were complete. The coalition had accepted humanity's terms and diplomatic relations would begin immediately. Any regrets, Admiral? Captain Chen asked, joining him at the window. Many, he admitted. My people expected to find empty space or primitive humans. Instead, we found a civilization that makes the coalition look like children playing with toys. It doesn't have to be a bad thing, Captain Chen said. Humanity has no interest in conquering the coalition. We just want to be left alone to develop in peace. And if we leave you alone, what then? Will humanity continue to expand? Captain Chen was quiet for a moment, looking out at the stars. Admiral, there are approximately 400 billion stars in this galaxy. Plenty of room for everyone to grow as long as we're all reasonable about it. As the Indomitable jumped to hyperspace, carrying the coalition delegation back to their territory, Admiral Kethvar realized that the galaxy had changed forever. The age of easy expansion was over. Humanity had returned to the galactic community, not as a minor species seeking membership, but as an equal power demanding respect. The balance of power had shifted. Now everyone would have to learn to live with it. From his command chair, Captain Chen watched the stars streak past and smiled. After 2 centuries of preparation, humanity had finally taken its place among the powers of the galaxy. Not through conquest or subjugation, but through strength, patience, and the unwavering human spirit that refused to be counted out. Earth stood unchallenged, and the galaxy would never be the same.